In this video, we continue in our series on the 7 majors that planned and executed the January 1966 coup that took the life of the Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa and a number of very important civilian and military leaders in Nigeria. We started the series with the profile and participation of Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu. Today we look at the profile and participation of Major Humphrey Chukwuka. At the time of the January 1966 coup, Nigeria was divided into 4 regions, namely the Western region, the Midwestern region, the Northern region, and the Eastern region. Humphrey was from the Eastern region. He joined the Nigerian army at a young age and received military training in several institutions at home and abroad, including the prestigious Royal Military Academy Sandhurst in the United Kingdom. He was then commissioned as a second lieutenant for the Nigerian army, and upon his return to Nigeria, he was deployed to various military formations for the discharge of his duties to his country, Nigeria. Humphrey rose through the ranks and soon became a major. His next rank would have been lieutenant colonel, but something happened and his promotion was truncated and his career in the military terminated. The question is, what is that event that truncated his career in the military? The answer is simple: his participation in the planning and execution of the January 1966 military coup in Nigeria. This was the first military coup in Nigeria, and the coup was a bloody one by every reasonable assessment. Humphrey was given a difficult task in the coup. He was assigned to arrest his direct boss, a man who was so good to him and who had recommended him to go on several important courses abroad, through which Humphrey gained quick promotion and had the requisite qualification to occupy important positions in the army. His boss was like a father to him. Humphrey could enter his boss's house and go out of it at any time of the day without any scrutiny whatsoever. He was a family member, so to say. The name of his boss was Lieutenant Colonel James Pam. Pam was from present-day Plateau State. He was the real definition of a military gentleman. He was the Adjutant General of the Nigerian Army, and Humphrey Chukwuka was the staff officer. In military ranking, the staff officer is the Deputy Adjutant. Humphrey took directives from day to day from Lieutenant Colonel Pam, who was his direct boss. It was therefore a mission so unholy for Humphrey to be assigned to arrest his direct boss and execute him. He was already in the coup plot, and there was no room for much argument. He accepted the assignment, and on the night of the coup, Humphrey led other subordinate soldiers into the Ikoyi residence of his boss, Lieutenant Colonel James Pam. He had the likes of Lieutenant Godwin Onyefuru and Sergeant Donatus Anyanwu with him. On their arrival at Lieutenant Colonel James Pam's residence, the first action that was taken by Humphrey and his group was to shoot the 4 tires of Pam's official vehicle. They then broke into his bedroom and got him arrested and taken out of the residence. The attackers came with their vehicle, and it was in the said vehicle that Pam was driven away. On entering the residence, Humphrey Chukwuka met Lieutenant Colonel James Pam with the wife, Mrs. Elizabeth Pam. Humphrey was a regular face in the house, and Mrs. Pam could immediately recognize him. But Mrs. Pam was not the target. Her husband was. She thus leveraged on Chukwuka's closeness to the house and begged him not to harm the husband. Humphrey assured her that he will not harm the husband, Lieutenant Colonel Pam. He assured the wife that the husband will return home safely. Pam was driven away by the trio of Humphrey, Onyefuru, and Sergeant Anyanwu. Their destination was the Brigade of Guards Officers' Mess, which was the meeting point for the Lagos group of the coup plotters. On arrival at the mess, Humphrey met one of the coup executors by name Major Chris Anufuru. Chris had returned to the mess, having completed his own task and having executed the likes of Colonel Ko Mohammed and Colonel Lunegbe. As noted earlier, Humphrey did not kill his boss James Pam. He had also assured the wife that Palm will not be killed. He thus drove into the officer's mess with Palm very much alive. When Chris Anufuru saw that Lieutenant Colonel Palm was brought into the mess alive by Humphrey, he immediately confronted Humphrey and asked him why on earth he would come into the mess with a key target alive in his vehicle. It is reported that Humphrey Chukwuka's response was that he was not ready to spill blood, that he was done with his part of the assignment by arresting Lieutenant Colonel Palm, his immediate boss. Major Chris Anufuru was incensed by the response. Chris himself had killed a number of persons, and he was perhaps not comfortable with Humphrey's response of not wanting to spill blood. It is reported that Chris Anufuru brought out Lieutenant Colonel Palm and shot him to death. This was a devastating blow to the Nigerian army as an institution, and to the widow of Palm and her young family, and to humanity. Palm was a perfect gentleman, and his assassination was felt with grief across the nation. Indeed, Humphrey Chukwuka was not the one that pulled the trigger against his boss, Lieutenant Colonel James Palm, but the truth remains that he was the one who arrested him from his residence and took him to the Brigade of Guards officers' mess at Dodan Barracks, Lagos, where he was shot and killed. Some analysts would say that if he did not accept to arrest his boss, the life of his boss would not have been exposed to danger. The coup did not succeed, and the executors were arrested and detained. Humphrey was detained in the east. Lieutenant Colonel Palm was buried with full military honors. Elizabeth Palm, the widow, went on with her life and the family. She raised her children with her little resources and with the assistance of the military authorities that provided educational assistance to the children of the officers killed in the said coup. General Ironsi, the new military head of state of Nigeria, did not try the coup plotters in any court-martial. He kept them in prisons across Nigeria. 6 months after, Ironsi himself was killed in a revenge coup, Humphrey and co. still remained in prisons. Gowon succeeded Ironsi and did not also set up any panel or court-martial to try Humphrey Chukwuka and his fellows, apparently because a second coup had occurred in the country and the coup plotters were not also tried, namely those that killed the country's first military head of state, General Agui Ironsi. While Humphrey and co. were still in prison, a war broke out between Nigeria and Biafra. Humphrey was imprisoned in the area now declared as Biafra. Ojukwu, the head of state of Biafra, then ordered for the release of Humphrey from prison to enable him deploy his experienced military hands in the prosecution of the war on the side of Biafra. He fought at the war front but was later arrested and detained. While in detention, the war ended and he remained in prison custody still. Later on, General Yakubu Gowon granted pardon to a number of persons that were in detention during the war, and Humphrey Chukwuka was one of the persons pardoned. The other person pardoned was Major Adewale Ademoyega. Humphrey regained his freedom but was not absorbed any further into the military. 34 years after the assassination of Lieutenant Colonel James Palm in the coup, something remarkable happened. Major Humphrey Chukwuka met with Mrs. Elizabeth Palm and pleaded for forgiveness. This was when Mrs. Elizabeth Palm served as the Secretary of Nigeria's Human Rights and Reconciliation Committee, otherwise known as Oputa Panel. The committee was constituted by President Olusegun Obasanjo upon his assumption of duty as civilian president of Nigeria in 1999. Obasanjo held the view that the country had been through a lot and that several persons had been offended in the many years of Nigeria's existence. He thus saw the need to set up a Peace and Reconciliation Committee. Justice Chukwudifo Oputa of the Supreme Court of Nigeria was appointed as its chairman, while Mrs. Elizabeth Palm was appointed as the secretary of the commission. Reverend Father Matthew Hassan Kuka and a number of others served as members of the commission. The story has it that when the committee moved to Enugu to sit for a number of days and hear from aggrieved persons, Mrs. Palm sought to see Major Humphrey Chukwuka. She did not have his contact anymore, and reaching him was hard, but she asked several persons to locate him for her. Eventually, Major Humphrey Chukwuka was located, and a meeting was made possible between him and Mrs. Palm. The story has it that Mrs. Palm uttered 3 surprising words to Chukwuka, namely, quote, "I forgive you." This was surprising and unbelievable to many. But for Mrs. Palm, there was need to move away from the inexplicable and painful past. It was time to heal, and heal in all angles. Humphrey himself was shocked beyond description. Lieutenant Colonel James Palm was born on 23rd November 1933. He was killed on 15th January 1966. He was only 33 years old when he was killed. At 33, he was already a lieutenant colonel, and his next rank would have been the rank of colonel. He was born in Jos. He was the first military officer from the Middle Belt to be commissioned into the Nigerian Army. He attended the famous Balewa College Zaria for secondary education, and thereafter attended the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, United Kingdom. He also attended the Joint Service Defense College, United Kingdom. He was married to Elizabeth Palm, who was born to a Ghanaian Christian father and a Fulani Muslim mother, and together they had 6 children, 2 girls and 4 boys. The children turned out to be very successful in their chosen professions. One of them is a Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, the Honorable Justice Jumai Sankei, while the other, Mrs. Kaneng Daze, is a petroleum dealer. Another of them, Yusuf Palm, a barrister and solicitor, served as Attorney General of Plateau State, while another, Dr. Ishaku Palm, is a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians and Royal Society of Medicine, as well as the clinical director in the British National Health Services at Noble's Hospitals in the Isles of Man. Another of their children, Ishaya Palm, is a professor of obstetrics and gynecology and former chief medical director of the Jos University Teaching Hospital, Plateau State. Ibrahim Palm, also a lawyer, works with Green Climate Fund South Korea. Their successes in life can be attributed first to their almighty creator, and secondly to their disciplined and hard-working mother who worked assiduously to forge on with the family in the absence of their father. Mrs. Elizabeth Palm lived a fulfilled life till her death in May 2011. The story of the first military coup in Nigeria is a story mixed with betrayal of trust by persons who were really close to most of the victims of the coup. Thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notification on every new video. I am your friend and host Ekemini Udim, wishing you the best of time in all you do.